So I've been on YouTube for over 3 years now, and I've been dreading making this video, not primarily because I don't know how to explain issues or complications that an INTJ goes through on a daily basis. But now that I've reached a certain threshold, over 10,000 subscribers, I feel like I have this obligation to be as correct as possible when I talk about a topic, adding more stress into the way I communicate some of the topics that I wanted to talk about. This is my fifth time recording this video. Fifth time within the past 2 months. This conversation is the antithesis of the stereotypical caricature of an INTJ. For the rest of this video, I'm going to be rambling. I'm going to be speaking off the hips, based off of a few notes that I've written down on the laptop next to me. But I want to be as truthful as possible to talk about this topic because I feel like it deserves the justice of authenticity when it comes down to the pain point that most INTJs go through, especially when we already feel like we're misunderstood by even our loved ones, our closest, or the closest people to us. The original script for this video had me categorize the issues into 5 different categories, but I didn't like the way it sounded because it minimized the depth at which we feel emotions and how it actually affects our lives. For example, one of them was just empathy or extroverted feeling if you really wanted to go into the cognitive function. It was how difficult it is for us to not necessarily get out of ourselves, but then to downplay our own personal values in order to make sure that other people around us feel a lot more comfortable. We stand on business. We're INTJs. But as with most videos that I saw online, whether they're those shitty AI slop with those mechanical or AI voices, or people who are not INTJs talking about INTJ issues, it doesn't go into nitty gritty. It doesn't go as deep as I feel like most INTJs or NI-DOMs need. Primarily how it affects us internally and how that cascades or has a ripple effect into every aspect of our lives. It doesn't talk about how that one time you decide that you didn't want to go watch a movie with one of your friends, even though they asked you, that the next time they didn't ask you anymore, and then how you start wondering, hey, if this person didn't ask me this time, then are we even friends? And then that conversation goes into the whole, oh, well, is it because I'm a bad friend? And that cascades into, oh, maybe I'm just unlovable, which cascades into existentialism when you start wondering, oh, what does it mean to be alive? And then somehow you get to the point where it's, okay, actually, John, you're overthinking it. You don't care. When in actuality, you do care. It fucking hurts. But somehow you are able to justify the action as I don't care. The other part of it also is the perception of you when you are acting naturally the way you are. If you're an INTJ, if you have SE dominant friends like myself, ESFPs or ESTPs, they just think I'm lame. They think I'm freaking boring. They always wonder why I'm a Debbie Downer when I don't have enough energy in order to keep doing whatever they want to do throughout the day. Like I went on vacation with an ESTP, and that girl, we were out of the apartment or out of the hotel from 8 a.m. and we didn't get home till like I think 11 or 12. There was no moment for rest. I had a great time. We did a lot of things, but we had to do that multiple days to the point where I straight up told her I need to go home to relax because I can't keep doing this. All right, let's get back on topic. I want to make sure that I express most of the issues. This might be a 2 or 3 part video. I'm not really sure yet. The first issue that I want to talk about, which is an issue that I've been dealing with my entire life, ever since the moment I can make coherent sentences, is that as an INTJ, I know I'm weird. But being weird isn't the issue itself. As a type who has introverted feeling in one of our first 4 cognitive function, I have learned to love that side of me. The issue is the result of being different. The issue is the result of people perceiving you in a way that is incorrect to who you are and the type of person that you try to show yourself to other people. I have a fondness for authenticity. That's something that I actively seek within other people. What I've noticed over time as an INTJ, I'm very succinct. I use specific words or specific verbiage in order to describe what I'm trying to convey, which should not leave room for misinterpretation from other people because the vocabulary that I use are so direct and specific. But it happens. It always happens that what I say isn't what's interpreted. And it might be because of the way I expressed it. It might be because the other person interpreted it differently. But I've noticed over time that misconception of myself is usually a projection of another person's insecurities. And usually those insecurities come from an outwardly source, such as their own fear of how they fear to be perceived by other people. Therefore, if they fear that, we as INTJs should fear that as well. The whole social aspect of being human, which is, how we're perceived by others, that has little effect on my day-to-day life. That has such a little effect on the way I operate and the way that I spend my time doing what I want to do. If I don't know you and if I don't know the person, I could care less. I could They could think I'm fucking Hitler and I wouldn't care. Something that I don't think most people understand about being an INTJ is that if you are part of my social circle, that means that I allow you the ability to affect my emotions. And I'm going to talk about emotions a little bit later on in this video, but if you are in my social circle, I do care about you and how you feel about me, because the way you feel about me is a direct reflection of how I am engaging you. And if you see me negatively, therefore I have done something wrong for you to think of me negatively. That might not always be the case, but that's how it feels. It hurts to know that the actions that I perform around the people I care about, most of the time it's stems from a place of good, such as actually doing something for someone that they don't want to do or they've been complaining about, is perceived as me being controlling or perceived as me not allowing them to live the life that they want. It shows itself in almost every aspect of life. I have been in so many situations where I'm an INTJ. I am naturally an overachiever. I'm an overachiever because I achieve for myself and because I want to be left alone most of the time. And when I tell people that, that's not what is being heard. I've heard multiple times in multiple workforces, multiple workplaces, that they think that I am overperforming to make them look bad so that I can receive some accolade or reward. The only reward I want is to be left alone. Pay me more, leave me alone, and I'll be happy. But that's not what is understood by someone else. Even though I've directly told them the reasoning behind why I do what I do. Another thing that I think gets misunderstood about me personally is that I grew up in a very spiritual upbringing. My grandpa was a shaman. My entire life, I've been around shamans. And I'm, as an INTJ, I have this eternal battle against spirituality and atheism. I am a spiritual atheist. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's the way I feel about myself. I seek spirituality. That's why I look into, the more of the occult. And when I tell my friends that I've known for like 20ish years, or family that I've known for like forever, they think I'm doing that just to be weird so I can stand out, or so I can find like a big titty pale goth girl or something, which that is sort of my type of person that I'm interested in, but it's one of the lowest priority is the reason why I do that. I'm seeking the spirituality that I have lost over time throughout my life. And it's little things like that. I could do something that benefits someone else directly, but it is perceived as me doing something negative, to a point where even when I don't do anything, people perceive it as negative. If someone asks me if I want to do something and I say no, I don't have time, that's perceived as negative. If someone does something and doesn't ask me, but for some reason they expect me to ask them if I could do that, that's perceived as negative. It's a lose-lose situation. No matter what I do, no matter what action I take, regardless of whether it comes from a place of love or a place of indifference, it is perceived in a very negative light. And I want to stress this. It becomes an issue if that person I allowed into my inner circle to have emotional sway over me, or if it's reporting to someone who has authority over my career or something that I want to do. If it's my boss, that fucking hurts. It's like, girl, because my last boss was a girl. I'm like, girl, you see me at work every day. You see my output. You see, like, I communicate with you. I'm as thorough as possible when it comes down to documentation. But yet, this is how you perceive me. Or when it's family or friends, it's like, I tell you guys about my issues, which is very personal. But you guys still perceive me a different way, even though I never gave you the idea that I think that way, or if I outwardly told you I don't think that way. I think the issue with this problem comes down primarily to attention. It is negative attention, and most of the time, negative attention is something that INTJs don't want. It becomes gossip. And for those of you out there who say that you don't no one wants to be part of gossip, that's not true. Gossip is not inherently negative. Even some people want negative gossip because they believe that negative, like some people thrive off that negativity, primarily trolls online. I don't want the spotlight at all. I don't want to be seen most of the time. That's one of the reasons why I love, extroverts. I'm going to use my ENTJ best friend, for example. I love working with him on projects because he wants the spotlight. He wants the admiration. He wants everyone to look at him and think he's the most competent person and most capable person. I don't want any of that. I just want to do my job and make sure the system works and just watch it from afar to see whether it benefits the people or whether we win whatever we're working on. My entire life, I've been like that. My ENTJ friend, we used to love it whenever his parents used to praise him in front of other parents. I don't know if this is a non Asian thing, but Asian parents love to compare kids. And he loved it. He actually thrived off of it whenever his parents would talk him up around his relatives. I hated that. The moment my mom used to do that in front of other relatives, I used to try to embarrass my mom. I used to be like, "No, I'm dumb. I'm a piece of shit. I don't know anything. My mom's just lying to you." And my mom is ESFJ, so it matters a lot to her. But she eventually figured out that that's something that I don't like doing, and she stopped doing it after a while, especially after having a very tough discussion one day about it. Like this entire section primarily comes down to just being misunderstood. INTJs are always misunderstood no matter what we do, which honestly, we have it pretty fucking bad compared to other MBTI types. Let's use our sister type, the sister NI types, the INFJs. INFJs have such a good personality stereotype. They're the best people in the world. They can't do no wrong. They love people. Yada yada yada. Yeah, I love INFJs. I honestly, you guys are one of my favorite type of people. But that doesn't show the whole story. It doesn't show the complexity of the person, and it doesn't show negative INFJs or traits of negative INFJs, which I've seen before. The gossipy type, the bossy type, the ones that think they know everything and would shut down other people. It's, like I'm not here to talk negative about INFJs, but the stereotype of INTJs is that we're always capable, especially when it comes down to the real world. But that's not the complete truth. It's only capable. We're only capable whenever we need to be. Most of the time, society either hates us, doesn't like us, or doesn't understand us. But we're just okay with it because we understand that our actions will speak for us, and that internally, as long as we are proud of ourselves, that matters more than what other people think of us. As an INTJ, we will continuously be misunderstood by those closest to us that will sometimes feel like a stab in the back, but that's something that we have to learn to acknowledge. And this is the part where I want to remind younger INTJs or just every INTJ that's watching this video. That's the reason why introverted feeling is so important for you to develop. The moment you understand the other person's value, regardless of the way to communicate, whether it comes from a malicious place or whether it's just something natural for them. Don't forget, the extroverted feeling and INTJ's trickster function are technical blind spots, something that we devalue the most out of every other function out there. Extroverted feeling has something that we hate doing, which is gossip. Gossip means just communicating. Gossip typically means communicating with other people, sometimes in a negative light. We don't understand it, but other people do that, and that's a very social thing. So INTJs, work on introverted feelings so that when other people gossip about you that you're close with, that you don't take it so personal that you decide to cut off any communication with them, because sometimes it's just as natural for them as air. And before I continue this video, I do want to reiterate that relationships with colleagues, friends, family, as with every other relationship out there, there's going to be ebbs and flows. There's going to be high times, low times. There's going to be great times. There's going to be times where you're going to hate the other person. But that's the beauty of relationships. As long as you understand where the person's coming from and you understand the value system that they have, which aligns with yours, you guys can get through anything. That's how strong bonds are built. Just because you don't like one aspect of that person doesn't mean that every other aspect of that person sucks. This whole conversation about being misunderstood, this is one of the reasons why I think Mr. Darcy from the novel, movie, whatever, TV series, Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice is the best representation of what an INTJ goes through whenever we're misunderstood. And here's a spoiler for you that's never read the book or watched the show that's been around for like over a century now. Mr. Darcy is this really rich person, which, if you don't know him, he seems like just a pompous Nepo baby that hates people and seems like a narcissist. But when in actuality, when you actually meet him, you see that the people that he surrounds himself with actually adores him, and that the people that actually work for him, because he is a person of wealth, his workers only speak highly of him. And they don't speak highly of him just because he pays them. It's just because the way that he treats them as real human beings. And that's something, that's a side of him that you won't see unless you actually get to know him. And he doesn't care if you see that side of him unless you are part of his social circle. That's just my plug. If you're an INTJ, watch Pride and Prejudice. It's such a good representation of us. The second I believe to be the most prominent issue of being an INTJ, and I've said this in previous videos, is that being an INTJ means that we lead with introvert intuition, and being an NI-DOM is inherently lonely. And I use the word inherently purposefully, which means that we're not lonely in a sense that there's no physical bodies around us. We're lonely in a sense that even when there are other people around us, even though we're around a social group of people or in a crowd, it still feels lonely. And I think this issue is maximized for those types that lead with a perceiving function. So introverted intuition or introverted sensing, INTJs, INFJs, ISFJs, or ISTJs. I can't really speak for the ISFJs or ISTJs because honestly, I don't really understand the degree at which it affects our lives. I've had conversations with them to understand how introverted sensing attaches a moment, a place, or a thing to their memory, and they're able to essentially go back in time into the memory to relive it and also to learn something new from that. Which for an NI dominant user like a INTJ or INFJ, is the opposite. The future feels more real to me than the past. When I think about the past, when I think about younger John, it doesn't feel like me. It feels more like a caricature of the person that lived at that time. It feels more like thinking about a nephew, a younger cousin, a younger sibling, or someone that just isn't me. That's something that I don't think most people understand, how detached from reality being an INTJ is. Yes, we are able to perform academically, professionally, or get shit done, but that doesn't mean we are in touch with reality. It's the example that I've used in another video before is doing dishes. I remember talking to an ISTJ, and she told me that when she does the dishes, she thinks about the soap, the dish, how she's gonna organize it, and like just the actual tangible shit. When I do the dishes, I'm off in my own little world. I don't think about those dishes. I don't like I see it. My body is on automatic function human being mode, but my mind isn't there. When I was talking to an ESFJ about hiking, he told me he hated it because, like he doesn't like feeling uncomfortable. But then I think about hiking, and whenever I'm hiking, I'm not necessarily noticing the thing around me. Like I'm still in my head. Yes, I'm walking. Yes, I'm noticing that like there are woods or whatever beautiful sights, but I'm in my head most of the time. And the primary issue about being an INTJ and being in our head most of the time is that our output to the world doesn't really reflect who we are as a person. And the reason why I say that is because we're not lazy. INTJs, I think that's one of the last description that any other type would use about being an INTJ. But what I mean is that just because we're not lazy doesn't mean we aren't doing something that we don't really care for. You know what I mean? Like, we're one of the types out there that can do something that our heart isn't into. But as long as it allows us the ability to do what we really want to do, which is think about shit, study, be left alone, or work on other things like art projects or something that attaches one of our values, it doesn't really matter. People characterize INTJs, they talk about how dark this person is, how moody this person is, or their ability to function highly in a competitive environment. That is a caricature of a person wanting to get shit done. That is not a caricature of an INTJ. Because for an INTJ, we typically are only in those positions when we need to. That's not us. Based off of the INTJs that I've met and all the people I've met online, social media, and all that stuff, you won't know what an INTJ values or what they're thinking about, their thought process, or their thoughts on most things until they let you in. And that in itself is not the lonely part. The lonely part is that even if we let someone in, introvert intuition has done so much mental leap that I don't think most people can even follow how I got to where I am at this moment. It's equivalent to being on the roof of a building and expecting someone to meet you up there, but they don't have a ladder. Being an anti-dom is inherently lonely because most of the things I think about or most of the things I talk about just sounds like fluff to other people. And whenever I try to bring it up to them, the conversation usually gets deterred and leads to something that's more sensory. I love my sensor friends, but there's only so many times I can talk about Love Island. I love my sensor friends, but there are only so many times I can play the same board game over and over again. I mean, I know I have friends who are intuitives that love doing that too, but I don't know if this is a me thing, but I believe that having introverted sensing so low for an INTJ makes it very difficult for us to do something consistently over and over and over. And having extroverted thinking, it has to make sense in accordance to the progress we want to make in our plans. The way that I described it to an ESFJ friend about how lonely it feels or how introverted intuition feels is that my brain is like the DMV. Information is consistently getting picked up by extroverted sensing and brought to the DMV, brought to my line. Introverted intuition needs time to think about it. And if I don't have time to think about it, it just gets piled. Like the line just gets longer and longer and longer. And even after I sleep the next day, it's still there. How can I talk about something to someone else when they don't have the information that I received in order to attach my conclusion to the information? How can I also connect with someone else whenever my conclusion or the things I talk about are typically are intangible ideas, thoughts, or theories that hasn't been created yet or has been created but doesn't have any applicable truth in the real world? That is one of the most complicated things about being an INTJ. I believe INFJ feels something similar as well. The specifics of it being an INTJ thing is cognitive function wise, extrovert thinking and extrovert sensing. We still, as an INTJ, the information that we receive has to have a purpose. There has to be an output. There has to be something that we work on that we can share with other people. It doesn't make sense if we're just looking for information just for ourselves. It also doesn't make sense to know so many things. Dude, this is something that I think is super pretentious that I read, that an INTJ wrote on Reddit once. But I believe it to being, I believe, at least for myself, that is true. As INTJs, we do so much research naturally that we've forgotten more that other people have learned. It's just so much information in and out when it comes down to just the whole idea of thoughts. I even asked my mom this the other day. She's an ESFJ, typical ESFJ. I fucking love her. I asked her whether she ever thought about the idea of consciousness. I asked her if she ever thought about her thoughts. She just fucking laughed. She thought that was the craziest question. She was like, "Why would I think about my thoughts? Because I'm thinking." you like it's not necessarily she can't fathom it. It's just she doesn't think about that. And then I was hanging out with my ISFP niece not too long ago, and she's in her 20s. I was talking about, hey, if there was a time machine, I wouldn't want to go in the past because if I went in the past, like, there's a possibility that you wouldn't be born, and I don't want my life without you in it. She told me that she never thought about, you know, time travel. She never thought about like alternate dimensions. Another ISFP friend that I was hanging out with, we actually had a conversation. And I asked her something similar. And she said that she only thinks about alternate dimensions or different realities whenever she's going through a case of deja vu. As an INTJ, thinking about all those different cases, all those scenarios, it it's so natural. It's so natural that I'm not even aware that I'm talking about it whenever I'm talking to other people. The world in my brain is like living a token fantasy. It's like living in Interstellar. The world in my brain is like living in every multiple dimension of every movie ever created. It's such an extraordinary place to be. But then there's the outside world, the world where this cadaver lives, The world where I have to engage with other people. The world where it feels less real than what's in my head. And tying this back to the whole feeling lonely part, it is impossible to have someone see what I'm seeing, to feel what I'm feeling. Other intuitives may see something, but then they see their vision of it. My vision of what I see is completely different, which is different from, let's say, someone who's an SE dominant user like ESFP. ESFPs, extrovert sensing, what you see is what you get. I admire that. I admire that so much. But I would never give up what I have naturally, introvert intuition, to have that because, like, again, I know I'm different and I've learned to love me for who I am. This video is getting kind of long. I feel like I've been rambling. The third part has to do with emotions. Emotions for an INTJ, I don't even know how to express it. I've thought about it so much, I'm not really sure how to even express it myself. But emotions is an issue. As an INTJ, it's not that we don't know emotions. We feel emotions on a daily basis. To be human is to feel emotions. Having introverted feeling means that we are able to reach a certain depth that most people who are emotional don't really understand. Emotions become a problem because it seems as if it's the opposite of what makes sense. Emotions inherently doesn't make sense. But then again, consciousness inherently doesn't make sense. Consciousness is your body organs telling your brain to feel a certain way. How does that fucking work? I believe most INTJs would describe themselves as being even keeled. That throughout most of the day, we don't feel too much, we don't feel too little. People hear that and they think, oh, it's because they don't feel emotions. No, dummy. We feel that way because we master our emotions. We learn how to not let it control too much of ourselves. We also learn how to be effective even when we're feeling it. It's such an odd feeling to be an INTJ and to go through intense emotions. People don't understand this. I don't like that butterfly feelings. When I'm in a relationship and I get that butterfly feelings, I feel like I'm unoptimal and that's something I'm trying to get over with as soon as possible. Man, INFPs love that shit. They love the courtship. They love the whole feeling, oh, does this person like me? Does this person not like me? And then, oh, this person thinking about me. I don't want any of that. I just want to be like, oh, we're in a relationship, good. And this feels comfortable, good. That's what matters the most. But then there's the other part of it too, outside of relationship, where it's like INTJs, we can be very effective in very high stress situations, whether it's at work, whether it's a casualty happening, or whether it's something that's unforeseen. People want to hear INTJs, they think that, oh, because they're SE last, that means they can't adapt to a certain situation. Wrong. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. We can adapt the situation if the response needed is a tangible action. So what I mean is that at work, if something happens to a project I'm working on, I have to go back into my brain in order to figure out the issue, right? For an INTJ, being an introverted intuition dom, being in my brain, think about stuff, think about problems, fixing problems is so natural. Whenever we're in a social situation, when something happens where I have to fix something for other people, easy. I could do that all day because again, I'm going back to my brain and I'm figuring out a solution in order to fix this problem. It becomes an issue whenever it's something that's unpredictable in a situation where I don't feel like I have the ability to be in my brain. Emotion sucks because it is not logical. This also ties into like another part of being an INTJ that I don't think most people are aware of. We can handle high stress situations. We can handle all that bullshit. But the day-to-day shit that happens, that is like that can make an INTJ go ballistic. Whenever I'm microwaving my food, but the microwave automatically shuts down for some freaking reason. A microwave that, mind you, has worked for the past 3 to 5 years, but for some freaking reason, this exact moment, it broke. Or whenever you're just walking, you accidentally bump your shoulder into something, and then your glass of water falls. Those very insignificant little moments to most people is those trivial moments is the tipping point for INTJs. And I'm not saying tipping point as in there is a accumulation of issues throughout the day that made us go crazy. It's that those little moments is equivalent to a person who stresses out during high stress situations. So INTJs who are calm and collected whenever we're on vacation, something happens, and we need to figure out what to do next. Can't figure out what to do when something trivial like that happens to us on a daily basis. That's why it seems as if anyone who dates an INTJ or anyone who knows an INTJ says that we have anger management or something. It's not that. It's because there are different things that trigger us. To most people, it doesn't make sense, but it doesn't make sense for us when most people are triggered by those other things that we could do on a daily basis. Understanding our own emotions is a topic in itself. I'm actually running out of memory on my phone, so this is gonna have to be a 2 or 3 part video. Come back for part 2. Thank you for watching.